Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Are we on day 13? I think we are on day 13, lucky 13. Yes, thank you, Kenny. I wrote it down yesterday and I posted the day because that really is where my head is these days. What day is it? What year is it? What's my name? Who am I? Where do I live? What planet am I from? All really important questions, none of which I seem to have an answer to today. I'm just waiting for a text to go through there we go. Now I can put my phone on airplane. Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. Oh gosh. Okay. So it was the Jupiter Uranus or Saturn Uranus conjunction a couple days ago. And now we got this big full moon tomorrow. It's Earth Day also. I think really just chill out, just relax. It's so hard to keep up, it's so hard to keep up. And I think that's something that I'm very aware of for myself. Oh gosh, end of Passover too. My God, so many things. Um, I guess this would be a personal update, but not really. I mean, I don't want to make this only about me, but since you've been so kind to join me here for the past almost 2 weeks, and this started off really as such a raw personal share, and I've been sharing with you, like, one of the challenges that I have been dancing with has been, to not give in to the performer, right? And I love my performer. I absolutely love that aspect of my personality, my persona. And at the same time, got to rein him in. He's a little bit thirsty. Like, you give him the spotlight, he's going to stay there forever. He's never going to leave. So I just have to be very, very mindful, because there's nothing wrong with putting on a show and being entertaining and, being charismatic and bright and sparkly and funny and all those things. And I love those things about these aspects of self. And yet sometimes, that also kind of feels exhausting. It also kind of feels like, oh my God, girl, can I just be? So, you know, it's interesting having done this for the past couple of weeks now, and yeah, exactly, Kenny. Like, tell the diva to go sit in the corner, like, go powder your nose, get a little sip of water, just have a moment. The spotlight will always be here. I mean, I got a drag bag in the basement. I could always put on some wigs and, an outfit and do a hairbrush microphone lip sync for myself in the bathroom mirror. That would work too. But I think what I want to do really is just kind of update you, because you've been so kind and so supportive and generous with your time and your resources and your attention and your money and all of that. So just sharing a little bit about what I've been kind of dancing with, and just realizing, what we were talking about yesterday, about how we gaslight ourselves, right? And hello to everyone in the comments, by the way. And also I just want to take a second to say thank you for all the comments, for the live chat, for the comments on the replays, for your emails, for following me on Instagram. Like, all of that is really meaningful, and I appreciate it. And apologies if I don't get to everybody's comment or everybody's email. I'm also in the midst of changing my emails and reconfiguring my website and all of that. So there's just a lot of things up in the air right now. So some of them I may have missed, some of them I just haven't had a chance to get to, but please know that I appreciate it, and it really does mean a lot. But I just don't have the bandwidth right now to sit at, because literally it would be a several hour commitment every day to sit at my computer, go through all the socials, go through everything, comment, reply, all of that. And I don't care. It's not that I don't care about your comments and your communication. It's that I don't care about being that version of myself who was I'm going to be the best employee ever. It reminds me of when I worked at Nordstrom and all of that, retail training that I got for all those decades of my life, which was really, really useful. It taught me a lot about how to deal with people, about how to ensure that people are feeling satisfied and happy. And as a business person, and especially having had several of my own businesses, that was always central to my experiences. I just wanted to be a good provider. A provider of what? It just kind of dependent on the business, right? So, yeah, I like that, Kenny. It's carefree. It's not that I don't care. What I've been saying is it's of no concern. That's how I've been couching it lately. So anyway, I've been thinking about this lately. And, when I worked at Nordstrom, and I worked at Nordstrom in Seattle at the mothership, like downtown Seattle, Nordstrom store one, the first store they ever had. And Nordstrom was really legendary for their customer service, and they would say yes to everything. I mean, they've changed their policy now, but back in the day, you could return anything to Nordstrom, whether or not you had a receipt. Didn't matter if it was 20 years old. There was a legendary story of, someone returning tires to Nordstrom. Nordstrom never had an automotive department, but they took them back anyway. They found like the market price. Anyway, I digress. I loved that I got to learn a lot about how to be a good salesperson, even though I was a shitty salesperson. I am not a salesperson. I hate selling shit. But I've realized lately, there's a part of me that just never dropped that performative, happy, perky customer service, sales, retail clerk persona. And that's just not me. Look, if you like what I'm selling or the company that I'm working for and what I'm selling for them, if you like it, awesome. But I'm not interested in convincing you of buying anything. That was always the worst for me as a salesperson. And I think that I know that what I did in part with my practice, especially when things started to shift and change and I started to kind of freak out, what did I do? I just went to default mode of like, okay, how do I drive business? How do I drive sales? How do I basically pull something out of thin air? And while I certainly don't have that mentality or that mindset of making it about a business anymore, because it's not a business, it's my life, it's my practice, there's still that part of me that, yeah, I do too, Kenny. I almost always rise to the top and end up being a manager, whether or not I want to. That's just sort of what is always thrust upon me. I didn't want that fake, phony. So, for me personally, what's been really interesting here is to accept and really understand that I am enough just to show up. And this is echoing some of the sentiments that were, I was talking about in the earlier, it's the total Virgo thing, in the earlier part of the series, and, days 2 and 3. And it's something that I've also been dealing with a lot of my clients, especially clients who have their own practices or have their own businesses. And this idea of, I don't want to be a phony. I don't want to have to be a phony version of myself, right? That's what I was always very aware of, is who I, just using that example of my retail history, who I was in the context of working for someone else in that environment was not necessarily who I was at my most relaxed, most organic, most open, most natural, most flowing. And that's really what I have been moving towards and calling in and really making the focus of my intention is, I don't want to have to change who I am in the context of my work or how I, make my money or whatever I do to get the resources in return. Yeah, it just starts to feel less authentic. It starts to feel more and more phony. It starts to feel like it's sucking the life out of me when I do this great performing thing. But it's been really, really good for me to sit with this and to remind this part of me, because isn't it interesting? I don't know about you, and let me know if the comments this has been in your interest, been your experiences. These old parts of self, even though we realize that they're not necessarily the healthiest or most productive, most effective, or most reciprocal or just authentic way for us to move through the world, and we begin to make changes, right? We begin to understand and gain deeper insights to who we really are and how we navigate through the world. And we can change the way we approach and perceive and present and all of that. But what I find is those old mechanisms of, we could call it defense mechanism, survival mechanism, whatever, just an old version of self that you thought you had to be to get what you needed to get. And to see how that still sometimes wants to rear its head, and the ensuing anxiety that comes as I say no to it. And I just watch it, like yesterday. During yesterday's live, yesterday's What the WTF, I'll be perfectly honest, there was a brief moment where I felt like, oh, I feel like I'm kind of performing. It didn't necessarily feel completely authentic. That's okay. I can't guarantee that every single word that comes out of my mouth, every single time I open it, will not somehow be a little bit perhaps provocative or performative anyway. So I sort of felt that briefly yesterday. It wasn't that big of a deal and it was fine. I kind of noticed it and then I moved on with my day. But all day yesterday, and even this morning, I was very aware of this old layer that was really, really worked up about the fact that we have to have something to offer. We have to have something to share. We have to have a script or a story or a show or a routine or something. And I just watch it and I say, baby, we're fine. we're fine. We're just going to show up. And as we always do, we trust that spirit will drop whatever wants to come through. So I just find it to be really interesting, my own experience of showing up this way for you and how it has helped me reconnect and rediscover the joy of just connecting and the joy of just being. Exactly, Jane, just be where you are, right? That old adage, grow where you're planted. So it's just interesting to watch that anxiety. And it's almost like what it reminds me of is I used to know this guy, we'll call him Bob, in Seattle. And Bob and I were friends sort of peripherally. Like we had a lot of mutual friends, but Bob and I were not necessarily hanging out by ourselves. We weren't really frenemies, but honestly, I didn't really like him. He was someone that was kind of hard for me to handle, just personality wise, as an energy, just always felt a little too much. And so I often did my best to like not hang out with him and sort of negotiate and arrange myself without having to spend a lot of time with him. But I remember, oh shit, what the hell? Oh, right. Okay, this is it. Right, a typical Bob. Is Bob kind of the male version of Karen? Anyway, Bob was one of those people that always wanted to be the first one to deliver the bad news. It was like he couldn't wait to tell you that something bad had happened, or that someone had said something shitty about you, or that he had run into your ex-boyfriend or your old roommate who you had beef with and he had talked to them. Like he loved to fucking stir the pot. Like somehow at some point in his childhood, he learned that being the bearer of bad news was the way he got his fucking cookies. And he fucking drove me crazy. And I hated having conversations with him. Hey, Kat, happy birthday. I loathed interacting with him one-on-one because all he wanted to do, and I could see the look on his face, like I would see him coming across the room at a bar or a party, or if I'd see him on the street, and he could not wait to tell me some shitty piece of fucking news because he thought I needed to know it. And from his perspective, that was him being helpful or supportive or useful or worthy or good or right or whatever, I don't know, he thought he was being. But I often feel like sometimes that's the aspect of self that has that anxiety. Oh my God, I can't wait to tell you everything that's wrong. Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And it's almost like this image of someone just running down the hall. Like I call it, it's like the intern mentality. Like, oh my God, I have to tell you everything. It just, it's uneven, it's unstable, it's wonky, it's unsustainable. It's not, I don't know. It's fascinating to me to watch these parts of myself. And I've gotten pretty good over the years at cultivating that observer perspective and being able to see myself or aspects of myself when they're activated and doing their thing, and just kind of watching them like, what on earth are you doing? What on earth are you thinking? Why on earth are you behaving that way? So it just, yeah, I think so too, Bliss. I think it's loneliness at the end of it too. And I think that's what it is, because here's what I think. If we want to just boil it all down, I think everything that when we really distill it is either seeking for love or trying to build walls against it. I really think that, and I try this perspective on when I watch other people's behavior and I watch how they navigate through the world. And I don't know if it's true. It feels true, and I have yet to experience anything that shows me that at the root of it, it's really only one of two things. But I think that it really is just this desire for acceptance and inclusion and love, or the desire to try to outrun it or hide from it or deny it. And I also think if we're talking about simplicities, you know what I always say, with every choice and every action, you're only one of two things is happening. With every choice and every action, only one of two things is happening. You're either moving away from your truth or towards it. And often the only time you know which is by how you feel, especially in the beginning of sort of unraveling and untangling all of the streams of awareness and consciousness and, you know, geometry and thought forms and indoctrination and all of that we have access to. And I think that when we get really, really honest with ourselves, you know, what is it that we think we are seeking? What is it that we hope we are going to achieve? What is it that we expect is on the other side of it? And this is where we start to get into emotional architecture again. And I think I said I would put a link to that video in yesterday's stream, but I didn't. So I'll do it in today's stream, and maybe I can go back and touch up tomorrow's too. I'll just put this note for myself here. But, what I believe, and one of the cornerstones of my practice, is the only reason a human ever does anything, from what we eat to what we wear to who we marry to where we work to what we buy, everything is because of what we think will happen on the other side of it. We choose things because we believe that there is a specific energy, feeling, emotion, or experience on the other side of it. And that's why we're choosing it, right? You don't want the car because you want the car. You want the car because of what it represents for you. You don't, for me, I wasn't stressing out about money. I was stressing out about what I thought the lack of money meant, or what I thought I wouldn't have access to without money. So it's really a deeper desire for a state of being or an experience that we're looking for when we make any choice. And so when I watch these parts of myself come at me with their hair on fire, going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I can't wait to tell you all the stressful things. The lens that I look through it now is, oh, that's just a part of me who thinks that they're going to get approval, or, a thumbs up, or a gold star, or a blue ribbon. They think that they're helping. They think that they're assisting. They think that they're supporting. And I think it's the same thing with most humans. Look, this is what I have come to realize. Everybody, I really truly believe this, that everybody is the hero of their own story. I have never met any human who on some level wasn't believing that what they were doing was really the best choice for them to make, according to their belief system, according to what they hoped would happen, according to their agenda, their desires, blah, 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 all of it. And it's a fine line between, sort of co-signing and what's the word I'm looking for? Enabling behavior that's just shitty behavior, and judging someone for doing what they thought was really the best thing they could do in that moment. And it's this thing of like, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. I don't know what's going on in another person's mind that informs them or inspires them or, tells them to make a specific choice. And so I understand why people who feel like they have their back against the wall, or that they have no other choice, sometimes make decisions that from our perspective on the outside of it, we would say, that's crazy. Why would they do that? That's insane. But we have no way of knowing what their history was, what brought them to that point, and what they really thought and hoped and believed would be on the other side of that choice. And that really helps me find some compassion in moments where I'm really like, what the hell could they possibly have been thinking? And I don't need to know what they thought or why they did it to have compassion for someone who was clearly scraping and scrapping and scrabbling with their own experience. And I just think it's important. No, Bliss, I'm not. I'm just speaking, in general, because I think it's really easy these days. And I think that where we are right now, there's a whole lot of energy being spent on trying to get us to just constantly be at war with each other, to constantly stir up the pot and make us believe that there's actually a right or a wrong. They may be unhappy, they may be bored, Jane, or they may be panicking. They may be in survival mode. They may be terrified. They may have no other fucking choice and feel literally like it's life or death. We never know. We never know. We never know. And I think also another piece there is to allow myself to not make it my business. I can have compassion for you and go, wow, that seems to me to be someone who's really spinning out. But that doesn't necessarily mean I need to stop the car, get out, pull over to the side of the road and have a conversation with you, right? Like there's only certain people that I can help. There's only certain things that I can do. And I just think that to be able to find compassion for someone, even if I'm not necessarily engaged with them directly, and just to say, I have been in places where I felt like I had no other choice. I have certainly been in places where I was desperate. I have been in places where I had to choose between paying a bill or eating. So I understand why people may make choices that make other people look at them like, what the heck is that maniac doing? But we never know. Now, that's not to say we can excuse shitty behavior, because ultimately, really the only one that can turn around anyone's behavior is the person who's behaving, right? It really just has to come down to ultimately deciding there's got to be a different way, there's got to be another way. And some people aren't interested in that, right? Some people are just going to take what they get and say, okay. So I think that, one of the things that I always refer back to is my own experience, and using that as a reminder that none of us can say, oh, I've never done that, right? I would never do that. Oh, I can't believe they did that. I would never do that. How do you know? How do you know? What about compassion for someone who feels like that was the only choice? What about compassion for someone who had no other option, or so they thought? And yours, Veronique, what about compassion for someone who feels that money is more important than people? No, I'm not saying it wasn't a shitty thing to cut your hot water to make you move out, but imagine the person and living that life. Imagine waking up and going to sleep every single day in the persona of someone who thinks that people are just a worthless piece of shit and the only thing that matters is money. And I'm not saying that's exactly how it is, but I think we just have to be willing to create space in our life for what we don't understand, and also be okay with not understanding it. And I don't need to stop and make a judgment or a story. I can just go, wow, I feel like I need to send some compassion to that person. And so I am, and on I go. It's not our job to clean up every mess. It's not our job to put out every fire. It's impossible to. But I think it's going to be something that's really, really useful for us as we continue down this path and through the next couple of years, because it isn't going to get less bizarre. It isn't going to get less like mind blowing. It isn't going to get less kind of what the WTF for a while. And I think it's really important that everyone continue to find their own center of truth and their own source of truth, because your own source of truth and your own center of truth also tells you when you can help someone and when it's just time to bless them and keep moving. It starts to go into this whole thing of like the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy to me is, I can understand that you're feeling some really big, horrible, awful pain, and I can understand what it's like to be in that space, but I'm not going to hang out with you in the muck. Sympathy to me is, I'm going to match your vibration. Empathy is, I can acknowledge the fact that you are suffering and struggling and having a really hard time, but I do not take on that energy. And what I find that to be interesting, because I think our modern understanding of the word empath, and maybe this is a bit controversy. I think empath is the new victim. I think a lot of people, and I'm not saying everybody, calm down, girl. I think a lot of people love to use the term empath to give themselves a free pass for not having to do their own inner work, for not having to establish their own healthy boundaries, for not having to understand and dismantle the martyr complex that they are carrying around. How I see it, honestly, is the human body is designed to be empathic. So if you're in a human body, you have the capability to be an empath. So empathy is an important human characteristic, and being an empath is something that we all have access to. Now, some people have those switches fucked up. Some people are never able to access empathy. Some people it feels a million miles away, and some people psychologically and geometrically just aren't designed to actually access it. It doesn't mean that it's not available to them. And I find time and time again, oh, but I'm an empath. Oh, but I'm okay, and what do you want, girl? Does that mean you get to just be a puddle the rest of your life? No. I see 99% of people who use empath as an internalized way to victimize themselves have a clear issue with their masculine energy. Because, and I understand, right? Maybe you had horrible, awful male figures in your life. Maybe every male that you encountered and all the masculine energy you encountered was toxic and horrible and traumatizing. So I understand why you have the gluten of spirituality. Oh, I'm gluten intolerant. Really? Not everyone is gluten intolerant, girl. Anyway, so I think that it's important to own that. Empathy is not a curse. It is not something to deny. It is not something to run from. And if you are going to claim yourself as an empath and girl, you also need to claim the accountability and the responsibility for using that gift. And you need to stop internalizing this gift and saying that it minimizes you or it diminishes you or it harms you. I think that putting yourself back into that driver's seat, back into the authority of your masculine energy, because the feminine without the masculine is just a pool of feeling and thoughts and ideas. It's an internal experience. We need the masculine to assert, to choose, to move forward, to expand, to pierce. So I really do see that a lot of people, and I get it, at first it doesn't make sense. For me, as someone who is naturally just turned on to feeling everything in the world, if I allowed myself, I went to the opposite end of it. I shut it all down. And for years, I tried to harden myself and callous myself and make myself impervious to any sort of emotional or, energetic energy that would bring me to an emotional state. So, yeah, I think so, Kenny. I think it's like the twin flame thing. Yes, I believe empaths are real. Yes, I believe twin flames exist. But no, I do not believe that the majority of people have a clear understanding of what those actually mean. And no, I don't think that empath means that you're going to spend the rest of your life, victimized and incapacitated. It doesn't have to mean that anyway. And no, twin flame doesn't mean you're necessarily going to marry them. We humans love to try to reorient all sorts of concepts towards our own victimhood. It really supports my theory that it is our unhealed pain that makes us incredibly selfish. And we don't even realize it, right? When that wound is bleeding and gaping and needs help and attention, and we haven't tended to, we are going to make everything in the room about our wounding, even if it's not. So whatever issues we have with relationships, we're going to project that onto the twin flame ideology. Whatever issues we have with our own personal boundaries and our own, masculine assertiveness and our own confidence, we're going to project that onto the idea of being an empath. So you got to get clear. Here is what it comes down to for me. Does this belief liberate or imprison me? It's as easy as that. Martha Beck calls it shackles on, shackles off, right? When you're moving towards a choice that is true for you, it feels like shackles off. It's liberating, even though you might be a little anxious or a little bit, oh my God, here we go. You're still there, right? It shackles off. It's expanding you. It's moving you forward. It's liberating you. Shackles on is a choice against the self in some way. Shackles on is minimizing yourself, right? For me, it's the version I use is away from your truth or towards it. And you feel it. When you move towards your truth, it feels like home. It feels like anticipation. It feels like possibility. It feels like potential. It feels like you. It feels like liberation. When you're moving away from your truth, it feels conflicted. It feels tight. It feels tense. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like, the knot in my gut, the pain in my shoulders, the anxiety. So I think that's really what it comes down to. So ask yourself, does this belief liberate or imprison? Does this belief and the ensuing action that this belief informs, does that move me towards my truth or away from it? Is this the kind of life I want to live? That's the simplest thing, right? Write down a belief. I'll never have what I want. Okay, is that what you want to live? Is that the script you want to read? Because you are the screenwriter, my dear. By default, or deliberately, you are the one writing the script of your life. So it all comes back to you, right? When you boil it all down, this whole journey is just about your relationship with yourself. That's it. That's it. So if you don't like what you see in the mirror, you don't change it by screaming at the mirror. It's all in here, babe. All in here. Don't forget, next Sunday, this coming up is a Pleiadian light circle. Oh my God, it's going to be so amazing. It's going to be an hour and a half of channel. I'm channeling this Pleiadian group called the Trio. We're going to do some group healing. It's only like $11. The link is going to be in the description below. All of my single sessions, one-on-one sessions are on discount, 20% off through the end of April. Use spring 20 at checkout to snag your discount. Sign up for my newsletter, buy my book on Amazon, Notes from the Higher Self. If you have bought it, please take some time to leave a review. That really, really helps me. And I love that y'all have been going to my book listing. Even if you just go on the listing and click around, it does help move it up the queue. I think when I first started, I was like the top 1.5 million books on Instagram. Woohoo! And then I think the closest I ever got was like the top 3,000 in like self-help. So I'm slowly climbing my way to the top. Not exactly New York Times bestseller, but hey, I'll take in the top 1.5 million books on Instagram or on Amazon. Love y'all. Thanks for hanging out as always. I love these days. I love these mornings, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I appreciate your support as always. Links for Stripe and PayPal are in the description if you feel like you want to offer some donation. Love, but that's not required. Hope to see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, same channel, same time, same place. See you then. Love you guys. Bye.